Hi guys, so this is gonna be hopefully a quick video about how we solved the cracks on the walls and the infiltrations that came with the cracks. So the house had these massive cracks that we can see on these pictures, and the water came inside and ruined most of the floor, the wood floor. And so we determined that if we wanted to have the house to be able to stay in the house in the near future, we had to solve the exterior before the heavy rains came and potentially damaged the house even further and would completely delay the interior restoration. So the first thing I did was to go up on the roof, and these walls, I don't know the technical name, the wall at the top of the roof, the cement was completely damaged with so many cracks, and it had algae and all kinds of plant matter. I went on the roof, I scrubbed it all up with the steel brush, or several different steel brushes, and I applied this leather type paint. I'll put the product I used on the screen, but this one can't be stepped on, so it isn't for floors, it's mostly for roof. So yeah, I scrubbed it all up. I applied 2 layers of this rubber paint, and I would say that 95% of the infiltration, or 90% of the infiltration, was solved, because the water was infiltrating directly inside this wall between the blocks and the concrete, and it was damaging the concrete, damaging the plaster, both inside and out. And so this was the main step, and it made a huge difference. Then we had obviously to find a solution for the walls, because simply painting the walls wasn't going to be enough. Yeah, you can use certain paints, like some kind of rubberized paint for the walls too, but then you start having problems with condensation because the house can't breathe. So I had to find a solution, and I decided to make a few tests. I studied it a bit. Again, I don't know the first thing about this subject, so I had to read everything, and I ended up testing a few different methods. I determined that I basically had essentially 3 options. Either I would plaster the entire wall, the 4 walls of the house, and I would paint on top of the plaster, and that would be the most professional, most efficient, and most durable way to do it, but it would also be the most labor-intensive way, the hardest to do for someone that isn't a professional builder. I had never plastered before. Then I would have the option to just plaster on top of the cracks, or I would have the option to buy a paint that could potentially fill these cracks. So I bought some materials and I made these tests. I've made 5 squares, and I tested these different methods and different materials. The first square is just a primer that is sold on Leroy Merlin. They claim that this primer has the ability to fill in micro cracks. It doesn't. This square that you are seeing is already 3 layers of primer and one layer of a good plastic, 100% plastic paint, you can see most cracks. It does fill in some, and maybe I'm not being fair because maybe this is not a micro crack, it's a larger crack, which it is, but still I didn't fill in any cracks before applying the primer just to see what it could do. And yeah, even with 3 layers and 1 coat of paint, it's good, but not good enough for what I want. Then the second one, I tried to fill in just the cracks, but I recognized that I should have used a sponge to take most of the plaster and basically just let the plaster that went into the crack. Because I didn't do this, you can see it's like a worm trail that you can see all the places where I applied plaster, so it looks ugly. The third one, I plastered the square, and it's perfect. It fills in the cracks and it stays. I used a material called Isodur PK Flex. It's basically this mixture that has cement and hydrophobic additives and fibers, is used to plaster on top of insulation layers. On the fourth, I used the same material, the PK Flex, but I diluted it to the point that I could apply it with a brush. And this is actually 2-in-1, because on the left side I just applied it with a brush, and on the right side I gave it a little bit of a finish with a sponge, just like I did on the third square. The fifth square, I just directly applied the same paint I used on top of all the tests, but without any kind of primer or any other substance, just the paint. I just wanted to see which type of cracks it would conceal, if any at all, and it didn't. It didn't conceal any. First, I decided to go with a fourth option, which would be to paint the entirety of the house with a sand type paint that is thick, and because it contains sand, it fills in these cracks. Not the biggest ones, but most of them. Supposedly, I did buy the premium sand paint from Dirup, and I just didn't like the result. It didn't fill in all the cracks, and I would rather do the whole plastering and be done with it. So I decided to plaster the back wall, just because it was small and it was like a test to see if I could do it. And I found out that I could do it, not perfectly, but well enough. So then I decided I'm going to plaster the wall on the right and the front. The wall on the right being the most damaged, and the front being the front of the house, the most importantly, aesthetically. Because of time constraints, I decided and because I already had a 50-liter bucket of a good, expensive sand paint, I decided to, on the left wall, because it is not as damaged as the right one, and because it's not so visible, both to us and to visitors, because it's kind of the back of the back garden, I decided to do the second method, just to fill in the cracks. And this time with the brush, really go heavy on it, take all the excess material, go in with the sponge, take the rest, and kind of clean everything with the sponge. And it does work very well. I do like an entire wall in half a day or maybe a day, when if I'm going to plaster the whole wall, takes me alone like 2 to 3 days. So for this kind of back wall, it works well. It just has the problem that I missed a few cracks, and now that I started applying primer, I see them where previously I didn't. So I'm still deciding if I'm going to maybe go a bit heavy on the paint there, or if I'm going to fill in those cracks with the concrete mix and reapply primer. And on this wall, I'm going to use the sand paint that I have to apply a heavy coat, just to fill in all those little cracks that I may have missed, and then apply the paint that I want to put in the house in the whole house. I'm doing one wall at a time because I just can't simply be moving the scaffold every time. So I prefer to do a clean plaster and paint wall and then move to another wall. It's not the most professional way to do it, but it's a way I can do it. So I have applied primer on the right wall, and hopefully tomorrow, as of the making of this video, I'm going to apply the first and probably second coat of paint. The first being the sand paint, and the last final coat being Decryl Force, which is supposedly the best outdoor paint from Dirup. So this is how I tackled the problem. It's sometimes I did cut a few corners, and it's probably not the most professional job one can see in a house, but I did it to my skills, to the best of my abilities, and without spending too much money. I did consider if I should rent or buy the scaffold, and given that I don't live near the house and I can't stay in the house, I couldn't really do the entire thing in 1 week time, and because I am alone, I have to rest, I decided to buy the scaffold, and that's why I can't really do the whole thing at once, because I only have 3 sets, and I have to always be moving them around the house. So I did buy the scaffold. I bought all the materials I needed that I didn't have, and other than that, I'm using premium materials, because I think, in these kind of houses that are so neglected, the house is 50 going to 60 years old and very neglected. So I decided that we needed to do the best thing and make a sacrifice to buy the best materials for the exterior, because it's very important in this kind of already compromised structures. So I hope you learned something, or that I inspired you to tackle these kinds of jobs in your house, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.